History is written by survivors. But what about the events that leave no one behind to write them? What about the stories that are so final, so absolute, that they vanish from memory itself? Those events, those stories, are recorded elsewhere. This is the story of one such record, a book that should not exist, and the man who found it. Our story begins in 1893 with a respected historian named Edgar Hale. He was a man of facts, of dates, of documented evidence. He built his career on the solid foundation of what could be proven. But one day, Edgar Hale simply stopped existing. He wasn't declared dead. He wasn't reported missing, it was Sirisa. His colleagues, baffled by his sudden absence, scoured university archives and libraries, searching for any trace of his work, any correspondence he might have left. The authorities conducted a thorough search of his home, the surrounding countryside, looking for a body, for any sign of a struggle, for any clue at all. They found neither. His name began to fade from records, his academic contributions attributed to others, his very existence becoming a rumor. What they did find, sitting squarely in the middle of his otherwise empty study, was a book. It rested on his heavy oak desk, a silent, imposing presence. This book had no title on its cover. There was no author's name, no publisher's mark, nothing to indicate its origin or purpose. Its cover was a profound, absolute black knot, the faded black of old leather, or the worn black of aged cloth. It was a black that seemed to absorb the light around it, creating a small void in the candlelit room. It was a darkness you could feel. Hale had mentioned it only once, in a hastily scribbled entry in his private journal, discovered tucked away in a drawer. The entry was short, almost fearful. It read, "I did not find it. The book was already waiting for me." This was the only hint he left about its acquisition. According to that same journal, Hale claimed to have discovered the book in the crumbling remains of a forgotten monastery hidden deep in the mountains of Eastern Europe. This was a site that had been deliberately expunged from official church records centuries ago. The reason given was vague, almost euphemistic, a theological catastrophe. No dates were provided, no further explanation was offered. There was just a chilling, deliberate silence where a piece of history should have been. When Hale first opened the book, the pages within were as black as the cover, not stained with ink, not charred by fire. They were black, like the absence of memory, like a forgotten thought. And yet, the text was there, waiting. The words appeared only after Hale focused his eyes on the page, as if the book required his attention, his consciousness, to reveal its secrets. The first words that materialized before him were cryptic and unsettling. "You are early, but not early enough." A wave of dread washed over him. Instinct took over, and Hale tried to slam the book shut. But it resisted, not with physical force, not like a heavy object. It resisted with a sense of deliberate will, as if it refused to be closed, as if it had more to show him. It held itself open, inviting him, or perhaps compelling him, to read on. Over the following weeks, Edgar Hale's life unraveled. His journal entries, which began as neat, academic observations, grew increasingly erratic and panicked. The precise handwriting devolved into a desperate scrawl. He stopped his own historical research entirely. He had no time for the past anymore, because, instead, history began visiting him. He started having vivid, detailed dreams of events that had not yet occurred, public executions in foreign lands, riots in cities he'd never visited, devastating fires that consumed entire districts. Days later, he would open the morning newspaper and read about these exact events, described word for word as he had dreamed them. The articles matched his nightmares with terrifying precision. He realized with growing horror that the book did not predict the future. It wasn't a collection of prophecies. It logged events just before they happened. It was an itinerary for reality. As the whispers in his mind grew louder, a cacophony of overlapping voices from times and places not his own, Hale wrote in his journal, his hand shaking, "This is not a record of the past. It is not a book of history. It is a schedule." He understood then that he was holding the universe's day planner, a ledger of what was to come, written in the chillingly impersonal tone of an administrator. Hale's final journal entry is almost illegible, the ink smeared as if by a trembling hand or a sudden jolt. It reads, "The book is not evil. It is not malicious. It is administrative. It is simply an account of reality, and it has begun revising history to correct an error. He paused, the ink blotting, before writing the final, terrible realization. The error was Weeks later, when authorities finally gained entry to Edgar Hale's estate, they found his study just as he had left it. A pipe lay cold in an ashtray, a glass of brandy sat half-finished on a side table. But of the man himself, there was no trace, no body, no blood, no signs of a forced entry or a desperate escape. It was as if he had simply evaporated into thin air. And on the desk, the book remained. It was open, waiting. On the final, previously blank page, there was now a single line of text, written in the same ethereal script it was Aname, Edgar Hale. As the investigators watched, frozen in a mixture of confusion and a primal fear they could not name, a second line of text slowly materialized beneath the name, appearing letter by deliberate letter. Entry confirmed. The book, sometimes whispered about in the darkest corners of occult lore as the Black Chronicle. Do's note kill, it doesn't need to. It is a record, a logbook of existence, and once your name appears within its pages, it means your chapter has ended. History, reality itself, simply moves on without you. You are not gone. You were never there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy diving into the unknown, be sure to subscribe and follow for more stories from the shadows.